Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Welcome back to my channel. Warning, this contains boy love, and if you don't like it then please get off my channel. Water pistol. Grinning face with cowboy hat. Atsumu figured out he liked Tobio-kun pretty fast. Unlike the others, he wasn't in denial, he just knows there's a handful of them that were. Now just when did he actually start to fall? Atsumu had heard of Kageyama before they actually met. I mean, it's hard not to when everyone that was associated with volleyball were going on and on about these first-year freak duo of Karasuno. And honestly, he was impressed. Karasuno had won against Shiratorizawa. The Shiratorizawa. Against Ashijima Wakatoshi. He had to have respect for them. Even he knew how talented Ashijima was. And because of that, he already established a specific image of Kageyama. Then they met and Atsumu was struck breathless. From the moment that Kageyama walked through the doors, Atsumu was entranced. Kageyama had walked in gracefully yet confident, something that awed Atsumu. He was tall and slender, but shorter than him, lucky. And yet you could clearly see all the muscle he put on. He had raven locks that looked so silky, you could just run your hands through it all day and be content by doing so. Kageyama had lightly tanned skin, which could perfectly show markings. Wait, what? He had a handsome face, cute in his opinion, that was either resting or scowling. But what had caught his attention were Kageyama's eyes. Those eyes bewitched him. Those orbs were so blue, they held both the sky and sea, but in them were traces of gray, the clouds and foam. And as he learned in the future, they were the eyes to his soul. Those beautiful eyes were how Kageyama showed his feelings, not by facial expressions. When Kageyama was happy, they sparkled like stars in the night sky. When he was sad, they dimmed like when the fire of a candle finally died out. When he was angry, they clouded like an oncoming storm. Those eyes were his end. That was the first sign, he couldn't look away from the boy. Then he saw Kageyama play. Magnificent, like a king. He had a strong presence on the court, ordering you to follow him. Ordering you to trust him and his decisions. And yet, he was also not what Atsumu expected. Tobio-kun led his team with them. Tobio-kun went to each player, asking them for their help. Tobio-kun thought of his teammates before him. Wasn't he supposed to be this proud and overbearing person? Because that's what he illusioned Tobio-kun as, and so did everyone else. But instead, the Raven Beauty let the people around him take the spotlight, while he stayed behind, supporting them, like a setter would. That was the second sign. Atsumu could watch Tobio-kun play and never be bored, because it was so beautiful. Then they finally talked to each other, and let him tell you, Tobio-kun was so fun to be around. Honestly, he couldn't help and tease, that is the nickname Goody Two Shoes. Tobio-kun was honest and determined, yet also awkward. That was adorable. People may have seen it as arrogance, but Atsumu found that part endearing. As much as Tobio-kun could insult and berate a person, he was also innocent. He was pure. There had even been instances where Atsumu would have this sudden urge to hide Tobio-kun away from the cruel world. Tobio-kun had this aura to him. No one would willingly get close, but the moment they did, they couldn't leave. Tobio-kun drew people to him, and Atsumu was one of them. Before he knew it, Tobio-kun was all he could think about, all he would talk about. That was the third sign. Atsumu had fun with Tobio-kun and couldn't be without him, in one way or another. 3 signs he saw clearly, but he was still cautious. Atsumu may not seem like it, but he can and does think things through, sometimes, and now was one of them. He knew where his feelings were headed, and he wasn't in denial. I mean, who couldn't fall for Tobio-kun, and he knew that his brother, Osamu, was interested now too. But again, he didn't want to dive into this without confirmation. He wanted a sign. Something to secure these feelings, because he didn't want to hurt Tobio-kun, if they really were just a fling, even if Tobio-kun didn't know of it. And a sign he got. Over the times they met, they got close. They could talk to each other. Rather, Atsumu initiated the conversation and mostly talked about volleyball and the occasional talk of life, teased each other. Atsumu teased, Kageyama bluntly spoke, called each other by their first name, Atsumu did. Tobio-kun still called him Miya-san sadly, and had physical touches. Atsumu did, man, he did everything. But Tobio-kun didn't reject his touches, so score. Though it may not have seemed like it, they were friends. And later into their friendship, Tobio-kun finally opened up to him. Atsumu was in Miyagi during Thanksgiving break, deciding to visit his rival team's setter rather than practicing. Actually he would end up practicing. This was Tobio-kun after all. And Tobio-kun had offered him his house as a stay since his parents didn't live with him, so he had the house to himself. Lucky, but also concerning. Atsumu arrived at his house at the beginning of his break, and Tobio-kun welcomed him in. Atsumu was set. He planned what they could do with the time they were both on break. He even brought some games for them to play. Honestly, Atsumu was happy to be able to spend some time with Tobio-kun, and this week was really needed. So spending a week with his favorite raven to tease would ease him up. It wasn't until Wednesday did he actually get the sign. Tobio-kun had finally opened up, in exchange for some information on him, and was Atsumu about ready to beat some ex-senpais and ex-teammates up. So like any good friend would, he showered the blue-eyed boy in compliments, saying how stupid they were for even saying that, how they most definitely regret it and miss him now, oh how right he was, and how they didn't deserve him at all. And in between the compliments and insults, Tobio-kun smiled. It was a sincere and thankful smile. It wasn't a big one like showers, but it was noticeable. It made Tobio-kun's blue eyes crinkle and his cheeks pink. And with that smile, a small, low, melodic, beautiful, alluring, he could go on and on, chuckle came out. Thank you, Atsumu-san. Really? Oh fuck. Fuck. Yep. He knew it. This only confirmed it. Atsumu was in love. Maybe not in love, but he was totally crushing. And hard. That smile. The first name basis. The face. Ah. The rest of the week was torture. Now that he fully recognized the growing feelings, his heart would not stay still whenever he was near the boy. Atsumu noticed everything around the boy. The little touches. The little smiles. The habits. He wanted to leave, because his feelings weren't calming down, but he didn't want to either. Just being apart from the boy it hurt his heart. During the rest of his stay, Tobio-kun didn't call him by his first name ever since Wednesday, and truthfully, he was thankful. He knew he would actually lose it if Tobio-kun went around calling him Atsumu-san and saying stuff like, "Welcome home, Atsumu-san. What would you like for dinner, Atsumu-san? Atsumu-san, what would you like to do later this evening? Atsumu-san. Can we play volleyball? Good morning Atsumu-san." He would not be able to take it if Tobio-kun did, for now at least. On the contrary of what people believed, Atsumu got flustered easily regarding his potential love interest. Only later in their relationship, did he get back his suave self. But if he wanted to get Tobio-kun as his boyfriend, he needed to be suave to get his attention because, it was just a feeling, but he would have competition. And no way in hell was he going to lose. Warning: this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haikyuu does not belong to me either. Well, bye children, smiling face with hearts.